Great. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Victoria. Thanks, Sean. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order with introductions. My name is Jenny Stapp. I'm the State Librarian and Chair of the Geospatial Information Advisory Council.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Valentin Hoff. I work at the University of Montana. I represent the Montana University system.
Joining us.
Good morning. I'm Eric Spangenberg. I work with Lewis Clark County and the City of Helena in the GIS office there. I support both local governments. My role on council actually is as a member of the Montana Association of Geographic Information Professionals. So,
Welcome. Thanks, Eric. Maureen. Sorry, Maureen.
Oh no, that's fine. I'll try it. Hi, I'm the GIS manager for Custer County and Miles City, and I represent local government on the council. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen, and you're welcome to use chat also. Appreciate that. Joe.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Joe Kaufman, Montana Association of Registered Land Surveyors representative.
Thanks for being with us, Joe. Brian.
Good morning, everyone. Brian DeMarco, board member at large, representing tribal interests.
Thanks, Brian. I know we are still expecting Lee to join us, and of course, Alan is not with us due to the federal shutdown. Thankfully, that appears to be coming to an end, but we knew that he wasn't going to be with us today. Erin.
Erin Fashway, I'm the state GIS coordinator and I staff the council. And Victoria, can you turn up the volume, please? I'm having a hard time hearing people. Thank you.
And Evan and Troy, you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, good morning. Troy Blanford, I'm the Water Information Lead at the State Library.
And I'm Evan Hammer, Digital Library Administrator at the State Library.
Did I miss anyone else we want to introduce? Are there any changes or additions to the agenda for our November business meeting? I have one. We're going to postpone action on the executive summary from our September meeting. We needed to make some corrections to those minutes and thought it would be a better use of everyone's time to bring those to your January meeting. So just a note that we will not be taking action on the executive summary. So the first order of business is the proposed meeting dates for 2026. Have that document for it. Hi, Lee. Good morning. Great. So you have proposed meeting dates. This is an action item. The January meeting date is intended to sort of launch the grant program. There's an action item a little bit later in your agenda today to talk about moving forward with some previous grant applicants. And then that action item would take place at your January business meeting, as well as further discussions about the grant program. The April business meeting would be tended to coincide with the need for this council to make recommendations on grant applicants prior to those May deadlines that we have an administrative rule for the grant program. The June meeting is intended to be more of a work session for us to spend some time thinking about the progress that we've been making and conduct some professional development for the council. The September business meeting would be a chance for us to review progress on our geospatial information plan. According to the rules, by the end of September, we need to have reviewed the geospatial information plan and consider whether or not we want to make any changes to it. And then the November business meeting is a chance for us to, again, continue to assess our progress and also consider a budget for the next fiscal year and any grant implications with that budget. These are all Thursdays. And sort of would follow the same time as our typical business meetings have been. Is there any discussion about these proposed dates?
If I could add one thing, Jay, I went and listened to the meeting yesterday at 1.5 speed. And there was discussion, I forgot that we had this discussion that we didn't want to do January of legislative session, but I just didn't think about it, like to do it that December check-in. So it might be, we could decide mid-year, but it might be something to do like a pre-legislative check-in before Christmas or next. I don't know if we have to necessarily put it on the agenda, but it might be something you might want to try to consider.
Yeah, I think to your point, we can kind of play it by ear since we would have a late November meeting. And that would give us a chance to touch base on what we know about the upcoming legislative session and if we felt it was necessary. Have something a little closer to Christmas. Be here before we know it, the next session. They're always just right around the corner. Any other discussion? Okay. Our hope would be that you would be able to put these dates on your calendars as soon as the action's taken, so we can lock those dates in and move forward. Is there a motion to approve the 2026 council dates?
I move to 2026.
Thanks, Melanie. Is there a second? One second. Lee, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Hearing none, the 2026 meeting dates have been approved. Moving on, your next order of business is, this is a recommendation that would move forward to the State Library Commission when the commission adopts a FY27 budget. For the budget purposes for the MGIA budget, it's actually pretty straightforward. Although I was gonna ask, in my team's note, sorry, we're taking to do this, some technology issues that you're on this morning.
Sorry.
Is a PD, could you bring up that? Should you share it? Yeah, if you don't mind. So I realize this is a pretty bare bones budget that we presented to the council, but I also wanted to share information about where you can go to find more information about the MGIA funds and how they're budgeted over the course of a fiscal year.
Is that information found in that fiscal report?
It is found in the financial report as well.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
not, I don't think she's on Zoom.
I was just looking, that's that link to the,
Yeah.
what's that, whatever that application is,
It's
that's,
neat.
so that all comes
I
out.
think she's on. Are you on Zoom right now? Can you pull up the Zoom, please? Yeah. You hit Zoom, the Zoom. There. Yep, the right. Yeah. Isn't it?
Okay.
I think she minimized the window. We're seeing like to the Zoom, yeah. There you go.
There we go, perfect, all right. So as Eric pointed out, a little bit later in the agenda, we have your first quarter FY 26 financial report. But given sort of the bare bone nature of the budget that's shared in your meeting materials, I did want you to have a little bit more context to exactly what the budget looks like. The budget that is recommended for FY 27 is essentially the same budget as what was adopted for FY 26. There's about a $50,000 increase in spending that's due primarily to the legislatively adopted pay increases for our employees and some inflationary costs that we're required to share. But the overall personal services budget and operating budget are, like I said, within about $50,000 of what's budgeted for this year. And then, as you can see in the budget recommendation, there is $500,000 committed for the grant program. We are confident, given the rebound that you can see in the account, that we can afford a $500,000 grant award with the reserves that we have in that account. So we're excited to be able to again offer that that award. This would be what would be budgeted in FY 27. Again, we're talking about a 2-year grant cycle, so some of those dollars would carry over into what would then be FY 28.
Yeah,
And
I was just gonna ask that's 500
over 2
2
years. Exactly, to be spent over 2 years. And so when this would be the first year that we would be budgeting with the intent of having an award over 2 years. So we'll want to then consider a year from now what the reserves in the account and budget look like for the next fiscal year. And then the other thing that might just look a little bit strange in this budget is that kind of last budget line, the hollow authority line. That line item is just intended to make sure the budget balances with our legislative appropriation. The amount appropriated by the legislature was that $2.23 million, but we know we don't have that much cash to spend. And so for FY 26, we have sort of budgeted to not spend about $900,000. With your FY 27 proposed budget, we would be assuming that we would leave around $400,000 in authority unspent. Again, that's a conservative estimate given the current balance in the account and some unknowns with the amount of revenue that might be coming in next year. What questions can I answer about our budget?
looks like we'll be able to, when we get to the grant discussion, we'll be able to potentially move forward with those folks that, based on what we've talked about earlier, those grants that we opted not to do, we'll be able to revisit those and potentially fund those grants, and then maybe even look at opening up for some new applications.
That's exactly right, Eric.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Other questions? Just so the council understands our budgeting workflow with this recommendation, as Aaron and Evan start to work with our central services staff to build the agency's FY 27 budget, then this would be the recommendation that would move forward in that budget. That budget is then ultimately approved by the commission in the spring, with the idea that by that time we have also awarded those grants. Any other questions or discussion?
This is Joe Kaufman. I had a question regarding the fiscal year.
Yes.
Just the fiscal year starts July 1st and runs through.
That's right.
Okay,
Yep, July to June, yep.
okay. That's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to clarify in my brain. That's all.
Yeah, you bet, you bet. And we budget early for this council because of the grant program, because we want to make sure that we have funds set aside so that we can open up that grant application process and be prepared to award those grants and start the grant process as soon as July 1. Any other questions? Maureen, I saw your chat. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to recommend the FY27 MGIA budget?
This is Brian. I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Eric, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Oh, Eric, go ahead.
Just real quick, on that uptick, is that because, do you think that we'll see it later on in the dashboard. We'll see the dashboard, because I don't think we have yet to see a change due to the filing record fee. Are you starting to see some?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, we're starting to see some, but they're usually like a month or two behind in reporting.
Yeah, that's.
And Yellowstone County was the one that reported pretty early, and there was almost a 45% increase from
Okay.
last year in calculated recorded documents. That script is to update that dashboard runs weekly. It already ran last Friday.
Okay.
So it won't run until.
So I'm just thinking that the rise in things is between us probably, just being frugal with the grants, and then also now hopefully we'll see that uptick from filing fee increase.
The filing fee increase, which
Okay.
went into effect October 1.
And we
Exactly.
did start to see an overall increase in general, I think, because of the interest rates
Right.
activity.
Okay.
Yeah, not huge, but
Yeah.
promising.
Okay.
Promising, exactly. Okay. We have a motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. All right. Close that up and go on to our grant report. And I'm happy to welcome Sean Anderson, the State Library Grants and Contracts Coordinator, who worked with Aaron to lead the effort to complete our internal review. This is something that the council has heard about. We spent the better part of the last year conducting an internal review of our grant program. And many of the council members themselves participated in this internal review as well. So this is an action item for the council. And Sean, I'll turn things over to you.
Start by unmuting myself. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for the opportunity to talk about this report. Like Jenny mentioned, it's been a long time in the works and a lot of energy went into it. So it's nice to sort of be at the tail end of it and share the fruits of what we've been working on. So I think to this point, everybody on the council has seen at least a few iterations of this. Last month, we had a nearly final draft to present to you. And then we pulled together the grant review subcommittee separately to give a little bit deeper analysis of it and give us some one last round of feedback on it. So what's in front of you is the final version of this report. And considering that you've already seen this in a few iterations, what I don't want to do is read this report back to you. I think in large part the report speaks for itself, and goes into a lot more detail than I have time to give. So what I really want to focus on is the recommendations that bubbled up out of the review. And what we need from the council going forward as a result of this review. But if you have questions along the way, if you have things you want clarification on, feel free to just interrupt and stop me. Otherwise, I will just talk endlessly, and it'll be less interesting that way. So feel free to stop me whenever. So as you know, the review itself came at an interesting time for us. We had to pause the grant cycles last year, and that pause gave us this sort of once in a lifetime opportunity to take that time off and spend our energy digging into the grant program itself, and talk honestly about what was working with the grant program and what really needed to change. So we pulled together sort of a broad swath of MSL staff that are involved with this grant program, from the central services staff that manage the finances of it, through me as sort of a grant administrator, all the way down through our program managers, our project managers, and Aaron's staff, and our evaluation staff, and Rebecca Camp and the work that she does for the agency as a whole. And what we did was look at 5 areas that really had needed the most attention. How we prioritize these grants, how we fund these grants and maintain the stability of our finances, our administrative efficiency, how we communicate with our stakeholders and our grantees, and then lastly, the day-to-day management of the grants. Part of that was conducting extensive interviews with grantees in the recent and far past, and taking a look at historical data back to about 2020 and those grant cycles to glean what we could. And the good news is that the grant program itself is still fundamentally sound. The vast majority of our projects are going to those tier 1 priorities that feed into the MSDI infrastructure. And we also heard that grantees had really nice things to say about the grant program itself. These grants can be really transformative for a lot of communities and open up opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have, which is at a high level sort of the point of any grant program, and we were pretty successful on that front. Grantees also had a lot of really nice things to say about the level of engagement from MSL staff. There's a lot of support and a lot of good feelings that go back and forth between us as a state agency and local agencies at the city and county level. Really nice relationships, and that's always been sort of a long-standing priority of this grant program. So it was nice to see that borne out in the data, basically. But the review also pointed out obviously some clear patterns where we could improve things. And those improvements basically boil down to having more standardized projects. Those result in better outcomes for grantees, addressing the timeline issue. More often than not, statistically, 1 year was not sufficient to complete these grant programs. Over half of them needed extensions over the course of each grant cycle. And lastly, the grantees need different kinds of support from us than we had been providing in the recent past. Any questions so far? Good. So the recommendations that come out of this review. The first is that we really want to simplify the focus of the grant program itself. Basically, this recommendation is that we eliminate project tiers and prioritize only projects that are directly addressing the priorities of the MSDI. Things like data enhancement, administrative boundaries, and bringing in tribal data to the MSDI. In practice, what this looks like is, again, those standardized project scopes for recurring type projects that are a little more cut and paste and can be applied more universally. That looks like things like cadastral improvements, structures and addressing work, things that we know, we have a lot of experience, we've managed a lot of these grants. Those are the ones that tend to be most successful. So those are the ones that we want to prioritize for grantees going forward. And I think the thing that we really want to emphasize is that simplification is not about doing less with these grants. It's truly just an acknowledgement of the reality that this is a really pretty small team that manages this grant program. And we want to make sure that we're focusing our energy where we can have the greatest impact on that statewide data infrastructure, and where we as a team can be most effective and continue to maintain and cultivate the relationships that we want with our grantees. Second recommendation is to have a more selective approach to approving these grants. To put it really simply, to make this program sustainable in the long term, we need to be more comfortable saying no to proposals if they're not directly advancing those stated priorities of the MSDI. That's not to say there's not room for exceptions, there's not room for more customized projects. But if we do have those, we want to make sure that there's a transparent process for that's well documented, that there's a through line between making that decision to go to a non-standard project to its ultimate impact on the MSDI. But ultimately having our default position as the grant administrator and as the council be investing in projects that have a statewide impact, things that are actually addressing the MSDI priorities, and being really disciplined about that. Third, we want to.
It looks like there's a question
sure.
from Aaron. Aaron, you want to ask Sean your question?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I don't know if you went over this. It's a little noisy where I'm at, but just to go back, well, did you define kind of what data enhancement was as being one of the top priorities?
Always after the right direction.
I might hand that off to Aaron to talk about that. I think that's more like PLSS and Next Gen 911 projects. This is out of my depth. I'm not a GIS person. I'm a grants and contracts person.
Okay, cool.
I'm sorry, I'm having a very hard time hearing. Can you?
Aaron,
Yeah.
and maybe, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just repeat my question. On one of the top priorities, you had like tribal integration, boundaries, and data enhancement. I just want to know a little bit more what data enhancement would entail.
That's a pretty broad term, and any data enhancements would really be outlined in the Geospatial Information Plan. They're the priorities of the grant program. So I think that's just a pretty generic term in updating data sets that align with the SDI.
I think that's the key point too. Data enhancements that align with the spatial data infrastructure.
Cool. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for your question.
All right. So the next recommendation is really just to implement what came out of the most recent round of administrative rule updates, which is to really commit ourselves to a biennial grant cycle that aligns with not just the legislative biennium, but also lets us sort of project those revenues better, have a better idea of what money is available to commit to this grant program every other year, and basically not find ourselves in a position like we did last year where revenue projections were lower than we anticipated and we got stuck, basically having to pull the plug on a grant program at the last minute. That's not something that we want to be doing with any sort of regularity. And that biennial grant cycle helps or goes a long way to address that. And along with standardizing templates and agreements, and the application process, we also heard from grantees that a quarterly reporting cycle is just kind of onerous and, from our perspective, not necessarily value added. So going to that 2-year grant cycle lets us do reporting, have a longer gap between reports, give grantees more time to complete their projects and not feel pressure to give us a quarterly report when they're still trying to nail down a scope with a contractor, for example. And then as far as administration of these grants, we're not yet to the point where we feel like it's necessary to move to a software-based management system. They're very expensive, and cost to benefit just isn't there yet for the size of this grant program. But there are opportunities to continue making better use, more efficient use of some of our existing tools. The move to a 2-year grant cycle, again, is aligned with the changes to administrative rule, but also goes to address that issue of extensions. It's laid out in the report, but over half of our grants needed extensions, and that's an indicator to us that something's not working right. That grantees aren't having the time that they need consistently to complete these projects. So the grantees that we talked to were unanimously supportive of this change, because it helps address things that nobody can anticipate, like weather delays, staff transitions, and just the realities of local government capacity, which clearly can vary widely depending on which city, which county, which locale we're talking about. The other thing that it does for us internally is allows MSL staff the flexibility, the available time to do things like site visits, to engage with grantees, and work with grantees to make their projects successful and communicate the success of those projects at things like conferences and workshops. It sort of is an altogether improvement on all sides of the program. I see people running around. Is it that quiet in the room?
We're having volume issues, so working on it. But
Do you want me to
go ahead,
pause?
keep going.
Or should I keep going?
No, keep going. We just need to scroll up on the plan as well.
Okay. Next recommendation is to enhance our statewide services and partnerships. This is where we really want to take full advantage of our relationships with partners like NSGIC, Marls, MACO, the League of Cities and Towns. The list goes on. We work with a lot of organizations like that, and we want to take full advantage of those to extend the reach of this grant program, make sure that people are more informed, improve communication, not just about the grant program, but about the MSDI itself and how local governments, city and county governments, tribal entities can contribute to the MSDI. The ultimate idea being that better partner engagement means better understanding of the work that we're doing across the state, in every corner of the state. Next recommendation is to refine our training, evaluation, and accountability. One of the things that bubbled up from our internal review and was sort of confirmed by our interviews with grantees is that our training really needs to shift away from being about coaching on completing the application to supporting grantees beyond the application process. Once their grant project is approved, how do we best support them? What training do they need to be successful in completing those projects? So the vision that we have is to shift away from application heavy training to having scaled, more modular content that's focused on the MSDI itself, those standards, as well as project management skills. A lot of these grants are going to small communities who don't typically do this kind of work in an ongoing way. So sort of raising the floor for everybody in terms of project management really pays dividends for everybody. And just as in terms of how we present those things, I talked just a second ago about leveraging relationships with partners. Those things can be presented at workshops, in-person settings, but we can also do a lot more to sort of make these trainings available all the time. We have tools, we can record these trainings, we can make materials available online so that you don't have to be, at a certain place at a certain time to receive this training. It's available to everybody whenever it's convenient for them to access it. And this is where it sort of bleeds into the next recommendation to be soliciting and making use of grantee feedback in an ongoing way. It was eye-opening to see the depth and breadth of feedback that came from the grantees. It was great insight and really was a key in developing these recommendations. So that's something that we want to do more of beyond just the regular reporting cycle for grantees. We really want to work with Rebecca, our data coordinator, to develop surveys that get administered at the end of these projects, so that we can use the results of those surveys to inform our processes year over year as we're preparing new grant cycles, but also have them archived so that we can have this historical perspective and take a look back to see if there are trends that emerge. And last is doing some assessment of impact of these grants. Anecdotally, we heard from grantees that these grants, the funding that they receive to do this work, can be transformative on a local level. And we want to quantify that. We want to be able to tell that story very effectively. So having something like a standardized evaluation rubric that links the deliverables stated by the grantee to the actual work that gets done and the impact that it has on the MSDI, that will be a useful thing to connect the dots on. We also want to move toward having some impact evaluation with grantees well past the completion of their project. So taking a look at these grantees, their communities, the state of their GIS services a couple of years post-grant, to start measuring exactly what the impact and the long-term results of this grant program are. So those are the 8 recommendations. Pending acceptance of this report and discussion from the council, Implementation is sort of the next step. And it's gonna have to happen in phases. You know, we're talking about kicking off a 2027 grant cycle. That's later in your agenda, I think next on your agenda. So there's sort of a short runway. We're not gonna be able to implement all of these recommendations in that short runway. But there are some low-hanging fruit things that we can do. Things like standardizing workflows, creating templates, improving the application process, streamlining the agreements that actually go to these grantees to sign. Those are things that we can implement relatively quickly. Things that are going to take a little bit longer are developing those new training modules and sort of laying out basically a curriculum for what that training will look like. But we are also committed to establishing more regular check-ins, having more face time with grantees. And that'll happen naturally just with the change to going to a biennial 2-year grant cycle. We'll have more time, we'll have more capacity to do those things. So that will be implemented sort of naturally over the next 2 years. But the target is to get to work on implementation of this immediately. Some of these recommendations will be implemented in the next few months as the 2027 grant cycle ramps up. And others will take time, but ultimately be largely implemented by the time the FY29 grant cycle starts up. And that's really the end of it. I know that it's on your agenda I mean, we've already approved the budget, and I know that we're going to talk about priorities for the 2027 grant cycle. I'm really curious to see what the conversation is around that. But ultimately, we wanted to get this report in front of you, the council, get your thoughts on it, but ultimately have your endorsement of these recommendations, and give us the confidence and the empowerment to get started in earnest with implementing them. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Sean, great overview. Thank you very much.
Just a couple of quick comments based on things that Sean mentioned. One is Sean mentioned that there have been a lot of extensions on grants, and I just wanted to make it clear that that was fine back then. Like, that was something that was allowed, and we didn't discourage. It was something for the brief period that I took over all that work. I had inherited from my predecessor, and then when Erin took it over, she inherited that model. And but I think it was less of an issue in the early years. In more recent years, it's just become more and more challenging, where we're seeing that we're having to manage 2 and 3 years of it, and it's trying to do things, trying to do more and more with the same or less resources. It was an opportunity we saw to address that. So pointing that out isn't saying that the people were performing poorly or anything like that. So want to make that clear. And then the other one was, we know, I think everyone here is aware of this, but I still want to put it on the record. And Erin may be able to speak to this a little better because she was there, but at least one of these interviews, there was some confusion for people that aren't involved here directly. We put a hold on the grant program because of budget issues. And then we made that decision to review the program because we had some time available. But understandably, some people out there that don't get all the information or know the exact timing of things, there was a misunderstanding maybe that we were looking to cut back what we're providing to local or through the grant program. And that was never our intent. And of course, we talked about in last meeting, by going every other year, we weren't trying to reduce the amount in half, but rather just to provide more time for that. So just wanted to make sure for anyone out there listening, yeah, this was never intended. We never approached it from a perspective of too much is going out there. And of course, we'll always have to monitor funding and things like that, but
Thanks for making those points. It's, I really do view the report as sort of making lemonade out of lemons. You know, it was really, I think, an important use of our time to conduct this study. You know, we had seen some of these challenges carrying over from year to year, and so taking the opportunity to really assess where we've come from so we know where we want to go. So it was a great opportunity for all of us. I'm glad that we took the time. Other questions from council, discussion from council, any other staff have any other insights that you would want to share? This is really a wholesale effort by many of the staff from the state library, so we appreciate everyone's input into the process.
Have you, so a couple of the last recommendations were around monitoring. Have you established some of those metrics and how those are going to be captured and evaluated over time, or does that still work to be done?
I think at a high level, we understand that those metrics need to be tied back to the geospatial information plan and the goals of the plan. And so, you know, some of those can be more readily stated, just looking at the goals and how well we're doing data enhancement, for example, or, you know, the adjustments that we want to see made, tribal engagement being another one. I think we can think about what those metrics might look like. So in my mind, that's where it really needs to stem from. And then I really like the idea of doing sort of the post-grant assessments. And I don't know that we've given a lot of detailed thought yet about what that assessment would look like, but want to be able to tell kind of a longer story about the grant program.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, many of our partners started with grants. So it is a long-standing metric that we can measure right now. We haven't had too many partners that have stopped being our partner, or too many original grantees that became a partner stopped. But I think there's some finer details we'd like to try to pick up. And I think we'll just always see whenever there is a giant shift in technology, which is happening on the daily, or a major standard, national standard that meets the need of a technology, this grant program is going to help get us there. Accessibility, adding 3D or adding a Z value to next gen, some of the others. Those are the ones just kind of coming off of my mind right now. Just adding a new data model, putting in better workflows to automate data validation processes like for next gen. Using boundaries that need to be extremely accurate in elections. Those are some of the things that I think that will continue to drive this program forward. And I see a lot of really happy, nice examples of coordination compared to some of my counterparts nationally. And I think that we started early and we have this program that can help support it. And we're smaller communities, so we are a little more nimble. Now we can get more done. So
that was my main concern, is making sure that we're looking at this, approaching this with the perspective of those outputs versus outcomes. How are we measuring each individual grant and that as that output, that kind of operational piece, but then how are we tying it back to the goals and that outcome?
Yeah.
So that sounds like that is forefront points.
I hope so. And I didn't know if Rebecca was on and if Rebecca herself wanted to add anything to that question. Rebecca's our data coordinator, and she's our whiz at helping us think about the kinds of measures and metrics that we want to be collecting.
Yes, I am on, and I think you summarized it really well, Jenny, and just making sure the evaluation continues to tie back to the geospatial information plan as well.
One of the more difficult things is to make it simple so that the people who don't understand the technology, the complicated nature of data, can understand it. I think that's my biggest hurdle.
It's occurred to me that you mentioned partnerships, right? These are critical projects for building partnerships. I'm not sure we've ever tried to capture that in our measurables, like capture the data.
No, but it is
We
a-
do that, but like, that's something I think for us to think about as far as how do you measure that? Like
Yeah.
3 years out, are we still?
Right.
Communities, are they still?
And I think that was stated, but we wanna try to do an in-depth interview like a year or two after a project's completed. Cause that's really, a final report's great, that just tells you how the project went. We wanna know 1 year later, how's it going, 2 years later, something like that.
Yeah.
Similar like these interviews.
It just occurred to me as you were thinking about that maybe there's a nice opportunity for a partnership with Megan. If one of the outcomes of the grant program is building that capacity and that GIS community. How does that work benefit Megan? And is there an opportunity for Megan to partner with us in some of that evaluation? Just a thought. Mako, yeah. Other questions or thoughts that occur to, Is there a motion to accept the final report?
I don't move to accept that.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Valentine's, a lead motion, Valentine seconded. Any further discussion? Again, I want to thank you, Sean, for your presentation today. Thank you to all of the staff that participated actively in this process, and to council members, Maureen, Valentine, and Eric, and others who offered your thoughts and insights. Really appreciate it. I hope you agree that it was work well done. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
I'd like to share my screen. Yeah. Quite the delay. All right. Thank you. Okay, so next up on the agenda is the 2027-28 MGIA grant program priorities. And so now that the budget has been approved and the recommendations, which we will be putting into place over the next few years, if not sooner, we will start working on that. But one thing that Jenny and I and Evan and I were thinking about recently is that we had some grants that were kind of left on the table that could not be funded that fall in line with the current geospatial information plan. And so in order to get things started and kind of start this grant process for the fiscal year 27 through 28, we thought it could be most effective and impactful administratively for us as well to offer that to this council as to approve these grants for funding for that fiscal year. And then we would in addition take the remaining of the 500,000 and then open that up in I think January at some point. And follow the normal timeframe of opening that grant program. And so why is this important? Well, we would be reaching out to those priorities that we felt were very important at the last for the FY25 grants. They we would continue to support the current geospatial information plan and then the land information plan at that time by prioritizing these tier 1 grantees. And then what we would do is I've already reached out to some of them, and some of these grants are completed. or have partially been completed since then, because it, you know, next gen 911 is pretty imperative. To move forward on, but what the plan is to ask you to approve these grants. And then we would reach out to them individually and see if there's anything left within the grant application process that could be funded under this grant program. And then award those. I think the final amounts would take place in January, but we could have pretty much everything ready to go. And contracts developed and so on and so forth for them to start on July 1 of 2026. And so this would just kind of give us a kickoff of the program. And then I think we talked about maybe allowing for slight adjustment for inflationary terms, but basically we'd go to them and say, are you still interested in carrying forward? I know Blaine County is. And then we would take that project and ask, do you have any minor changes to be made? Nothing that would change the overall spirit of the previously approved grant. And then just work on awarding those prior to the other awards being announced. And so I added the link to the YouTube video in case you had time to go out and actually hear the discussion of things and just talk about the overall applications that were put forward that specific grant year. So what I'm asking is that the council pre-approves this list of priorly approved grants. Put that in motion, and and then the state library would work with each of these to ensure that they still want their project, and it still aligns with what the project's already been written, and then ask if there's any inflationary adjustments, and then I would bring those final numbers to you in January for approval. So pre-approval.
And then, like Aaron said, with the $500,000 budgeted, we would subtract the amount of these grants, and that balance would be the balance that would be awarded through a new grant cycle that would kick off.
And the reason why we're not presenting all of them is because these are the tier ones. And they align with the current geospatial information plan. We of course would invite any past grantee to fill out a new grant for this this next application.
Yeah, because there was a number of that were PLSS ones I thought, and then 25 weren't there.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So just off as a rounding number, since we're all going to be rounding to the next nickel anyways pretty soon. So
As of yesterday, right?
yep, as of yesterday. From these four, what's going in, as a round number, what's the amount that these four? I should have looked.
I'm sorry, let me see if I can pull it up.
I should have looked at that first, but apologies.
So 50, just 93,
1593.
is, yeah, a total of 93,000, and then
They're all next gen ones, so.
Wheatland and Glen, Powder River, Wheatland, Glen.
93. Scroll down to Wheatland. 20, so 103. 113.
What'd you say?
Eric said 103, I said 113.
113.
Yeah.
113.
Yeah.
And 30, Powder River,
So
140.
It's about 140.
Okay,
Yeah,
So-
140.
so,
Sorry, I should have put that on the.
no, that's okay, so that's, I mean. In terms of the 500, I mean, that's still,
it still leaves a
that still leaves a significant amount for
360.
fulfilling the, rolling into this next
Correct.
generation of MSDI tied
right.
themed grants
Right.
to support that level, so.
Knowing we want to allow a little bit of inflation.
Yeah, obviously,
But yeah,
so
you're
figure
right.
160, 170,
Yeah,
somewhere in that
exactly.
range, so. I mean, so that, I mean, I think I appreciate that we're reaching out to those folks that we didn't fund in 25, so there is that. So that's good. And the amount that we're talking about is substantial, but not in the grand scheme of the 500. You know, we'll have plenty to open up to the next round of grants that we're gonna do. So that is a positive, and I look forward to that. So I'm not gonna try and do that word jungle of pre-approving, of authorizing a pre-approval of the approved grants. Previously approved grants, you know, along those lines. I think we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll leave it to other discussion, but I'd be in favor of moving forward with that, your recommendation, that statement.
And I want to acknowledge Maureen's chat that she also agrees. Thank you, Maureen. Other questions, other discussion, any concerns that anybody has about this approach?
And I think having us reach back out to that also goes in favor of when you visit with the Mako folks and others who look at this grant program, they'll see that we are making those.
Yeah,
it was
that approach.
You know, we know how jarring it was for these recipients to have been told that we were going to be moving forward with the program only to have it sort of yanked out from under them. So that too is one of the reasons why we wanted to prioritize this approach.
and I think the other thing that's it's like kind of measurable is these priorities haven't changed. And so they've been there for a while and they continue to be a priority, and we want the local governments and tribal and state, all our entities that are eligible to understand that these are very important to us and we still want to support that in their process to achieving their goals.
Any other discussion?
Then I would make that motion to approve the pre-approved, whatever the word jungle is, you know, to meet the letter of Aaron's memorandum here. So
To approve the recommendation to
approve the recommendations of the pre-approved.
yes,
Four grants.
the grant priorities.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Charisma, is there a second?
Sure, I can second it.
Oh, gee, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Yes, I was just gonna say, before we move into discussion, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break and come back at 10:15, please. Great. Welcome back, everyone. We're ready to go ahead and get started. I'm gonna turn things over to Erin and our fantastic team that's here to join us.
Yeah, thank you. So, next week is GIS Day, and I wanted to throw something on the agenda to kind of, pay tribute to GIS Day and all the awesome stuff that we do, but also pay tribute to some of the awesome cartographic products that, this team here with me and online has put forth. Pat, are you online?
I am, yeah.
Hey, Pat, all right. So today we've got Troy Blanford, the Water Information Manager, Megan Burns, GIS Analyst, Patrick Jackson, GIS Tech, he's in Missoula, and Garrett Whitehall in person, another GIS Tech. Thanks for turning on your camera, Pat. All right, so without further ado, I'm gonna turn on the other presentation. And Troy, if you want to intro it more.
Yeah. Yeah, so good morning again to the council. Troy Blanford, again, the water information lead, and that includes LiDAR and elevation. For the last several years, right, 2021, I think it is, we've been producing swag to highlight LiDAR for Montana. Our slogan there is, seen by LiDAR, LiDAR reveals Montana in ways that haven't been seen before. So that's our idea with these posters, and I would say the outreach has been very successful. I think they take something that's highly technical and makes it approachable. And that's the purpose, like start that conversation. You don't need to know about LiDAR or what it is or anything like that, but look at the images and you can see kind of the value there, and what you get out of LiDAR. At this last conference we went to just last week, we were at the Joint Engineers Conference. And someone came up to the table and they said, "These images are really beautiful, I love these, but what is it you do?" And that's exactly the purpose, right? We want people coming up that maybe don't have those connections with the LiDAR, with the library. And so it starts those conversations. So what we have for you today is we've asked the staff that worked on each of these posters to say if you know there's something interesting about the image, or give you some ideas on the thoughts that went into their decisions on colors and things like that. So this first one, I worked on this one. If you want to go to the first poster there, this is probably the most research-like one that we've done. I did this one for the Water Resources Conference in October. It's highlighting the Yellowstone flood of June of 2022. We're looking at the Gallatin River Canyon just above Gardner, not the Gallatin River, the Gardner River Canyon. On the kind of left bottom there, that is Slide Lake. You can see from the LiDAR exactly why that is called Slide Lake. It stands out very clearly. Most likely that slide actually created that lake. So what I've done here is we've taken, what I want to do with this image is highlight that we've now got some areas of the state that are getting repeat LiDAR coverage. And Park County is one of those. So on the left, we're looking at LiDAR from 2020. The middle is LiDAR from 2023. In between there, the flood happened in June of 2022. And so I kind of this childhood game of spot the difference. You're familiar with those images, kind of training your eyes to see what's different in images. That's what I worked with here. So on the right is the difference between the two images. We're showing where the river during that flood lost elevation due to erosion and avulsion, or gained elevation from the slope slides off and raises an area on the river there. So the oranges and reds there are the places that have lost height or lost elevation. The purples are where it's gained. It's a little bit hard to see on our slide up there, but there is a bridge, top quarter, and that fared just fine. But above that bridge and below that bridge, the road completely washed out, and it shows really clearly here. Another place that's really easy to see is kind of bottom half. There's a bend in the river, there's a row of trees in that one in 2020. And then on the right, all the trees are blown out and washed away. It's that, on the difference one, it's right above there, Aaron, that big red area, it's right through there where it took out that corner. And the other thing on this image that stood out to me is the road was moved from, the main road was up the canyon. After the flood, they moved it to the old road is now the new route up at the top of the canyon. And those changes where they had to do repairs on that road are showing up as well. There's several areas of purple there indicating some leveling or something went on there to repair the road.
All the way up here.
Up in that top corner there, yeah.
Oh, I never saw that before.
Yeah, right.
If you want to grab one too, look at it or something.
Yeah, we do. There's extra copies if you'd like to go home with one. That's awesome. And there's the postcards are around the table over here. There's lots of copies of those. So go ahead to the next slide, Aaron. This one's Pat.
Yeah. So you guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Cool. This poster is a relative elevation model, or an REM. We make quite a few of these. REMs are just elevation models where the floodplain is normalized to the elevation of the river channel. And this really highlights areas of localized elevation differences and can make like fluvial landforms and historic river movements like really pop out. This one is of the confluence of the Smith and Missouri rivers. Because there were two different rivers, there's two different REMs here. And then I just combined the two. It's meant to be a bit more artistic than some of the other ones we've made. There's a lot of different like color gradients going on here, color blending options and overlays. And this highlights a few of the interesting hydrologic features you can see, such as meanders, historic eddies, and oxbow cutoffs. The meanders are just when the river is pushing outward on the bends, and you can see those as like the wave-like forms coming off of all those bends. And then the eddies occur when the water just hits something really hard like a cliff bank and then curls back up on itself. And those really pop out on that far right side in like the curly Q shapes. A little above whoever has the cursor. Yeah, those things. And then there's some oxbows in this poster too, like down on the Smith, but they really pop out on this next poster. If you want to go to the next slide, which is also an REM. This one was created by Megan, and it shows Cascade, Montana. And yeah, this one, bunches of oxbows everywhere. And these happen when a meander gets cut off, when the river finds a shorter path. And then you're left with these like bow shapes that are no longer collected, but still often collect floodwater. This REM also does a much better job of showing like the traditional elevation gradient. So starting at like a dark blue and moving up into the lighter blues. And then at the very end, you can see the highest area is that bright orange red color. And yeah, I think that's all I have for these ones. If I think Megan, you're next.
There is a question.
Oh, what is it? Zoom.
Brian's asking if the wave light bends are representative of the river or like the river bed.
So that would be where the river used to be. And then over the years, it's moved towards like the dark purple channel as it's, you know, meandered. So it would have been both the river and the riverbed at one point.
Yeah, so the darkest color in these images is the lowest elevation. And so in this case, the real dark area is the river itself. Everything else is where the river has been.
And the change in gradient, I heard you say this many times, doesn't specify anything other than the change.
Right, and in this image, Pat took kind of an artistic approach here where we weren't really picking colors that showed a range of elevations, but really trying to highlight that there's a difference there. Simply means that there's a difference in elevation happening there. And Pat's blended this with imagery, and so like the brown areas are more less vegetated areas, and the green areas are more vegetated.
Isn't it pretty?
I know it's almost, go ahead.
Oh, would it also be, I guess, representative of like 100-year floodplain? I mean, if that's
Yes,
where,
yeah.
Okay. No,
So like
that's,
pretty much anywhere there's color would be the floodplain. Yeah.
okay. No, that's pretty neat. Thank you.
Yeah, so this one, we're again using that Missouri River REM. Here I've clipped it a little bit of the valley, and in the background is the 2021 map. This one is going from those darker blues being the lowest elevation to the redder being the higher elevation. So this is inspired by a Precision Ag graphic to try and, it doesn't really say that the redder is drier, but that if it's higher elevation, it's probably drier. But yeah, it's neat to see the pivots there. Again, this is that Cascade area and Sheep Creek Road.
One thing on this one is something we're really excited about LiDAR is being able to update our statewide hydrography. And one of the biggest challenges with that has always been kind of mapping canals and some of those finger ditches. That stuff really pops out in LiDAR. You can see it depending on how you do your color stream on the bottom right there. The red is really highlighting that there's some kind of raised berm there on that canal.
There, so I'll go to the next one.
Yeah.
It's the same data set, but just looking at it a little bit further up the river, Pretty Creek area. You can see the interstate there and just giving you a different perspective of looking out there.
Is this, sorry, is this, I guess, moisture content within the subsurface or?
It is not, it is still just using that relative elevation model that looks at the river being the lowest elevation in comparison to the rest.
Oh, okay, okay.
So within the fields, like Megan mentioned, precision agriculture, within that field, you're seeing any area that's slightly lower than others. And so that idea, if you're watering that field, you want to be thinking about that because you've got spots that are getting more water than others. You try to even that out as best as you can.
So between those colors, I guess, is like, for instance, if we went out where you got your dot within the green, if we took a water sample, could we, I guess, theoretically, the difference between these different shades in elevation, we could calculate maybe water soil contents within the different elevation gains based on, a predictive model of what we found within the closer to the river.
Make assumptions.
I think that would, yeah, I think that would be a fair assumption. So anywhere where the river used to be is probably where, as water rises, it's most likely to go again. So yeah, any of those darker areas within the green you're seeing there would be, you theoretically should be more wet than the surrounding areas. Yeah.
And then I guess, all right, I'll stop. This is fascinating data. This is really exciting.
Yeah, we have plenty of time on the agenda if you have more questions.
I'll stop.
I'll try to get some of these sent to you guys as well.
We're excited to bring these we're going to a couple of ag-related conferences here in the next month, and we're pretty excited to show these with the ag community, get their input.
And when we review these as a team, like what we're going to publish and what we want to, create our final products out of, the team is always really gracious. I'm like, can we lighten up the sky in the back? Can we and Pat knew, he's like, I could put a rainbow back there. I was like, maybe Santa Claus, maybe the night scene. So he was very
nice clouds here.
Yeah, he put some nice clouds in to make it realistic looking. It was awesome.
I guess one thing I'll add is I'm excited about using images like this to promote the real-time network GeoServe, because you can really see, when you're doing ag along river areas, even a large oxbow likely is not going to be completely contained by pivot, right? So your field, you're going to see where being able to reduce your management unit based on the precision you can get using the real-time network will allow you to target areas within your fields and treat them differently.
Perhaps we could overlay, we could work with Pat and Troy and overlay a little device there and make it look like you're sending out the signal, yeah. All right, these are the pancakes. Who gets this one?
I can.
Okay.
Go ahead, Pat.
So yeah, Aaron just said it, but we lovingly refer to these as pancakes. They're 3D renderings of contours, and then they're pancaked on top of each other, and they kind of look like pancakes a little bit, maybe. The one on the left. Okay. The one on the left is the one I made, and it's of the Smith River Canyon. I just chose this because it's got such a storied past with the state. And then I chose this color scheme because it's what I would hope best imagines the natural land cover and like where water moves. So from the white at the top of the mountains down to like the deep purple down at the floodplain. And then this other one is Garrett's. Garrett, you wanna?
Yeah, so this is, does anybody want to take a guess as to where this is at?
I can read it, so. Yeah, you're right.
So Sluice Box State Canyon, yeah, it's the same pancake contour method that Pat was describing. We actually got the inspiration from John Nelson, will be up in Whitefish at the GIS conference this spring. This color scheme I chose, really wanted to kind of highlight the deeper elevations and the river that runs through sluice boxes. And so that's your darker colors or your lower elevations. And anybody who's been there kind of knows how dramatic this canyon is. So I really wanted to pull that out. And then obviously as you go up in elevation, the color scheme gets a lot brighter. So I highlighted Crown Butte over there on the kind of the left side of the image. So very fun to make.
This is one of my favorites too.
Yeah. And then this, we all took inspiration from John Nelson and looking at his YouTube video, going through it to learn a new technique. This is Makoshika, and his video it was using 50-meter contours, and to really get the elevation to pop here, I went with 10-meter contours, and just looking at like the lower elevations or the purple and the yellow or the tops of the hoodoos and the fun formations over there in the state park.
Do you know if that one lake that appeared is in this? Remember a few years ago, a lake?
Yeah, I do remember that. I haven't looked.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure where it is, but
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah,
I bet
that's
it
cool.
is. Like this covers about the entire park.
Most of it, yeah, it's closer to like the northwest end of the park, so it might be in the southeast.
This is just so pretty. I love it.
I think there's a campground called Vista, and I think it's right on top of that, the white area there, that's on top of that. Right there, yeah, that one.
Then we went back to Belt and Belt Creek for this one. I wanted to highlight Belt Butte there, which is what Belt is named after, the belt of rocks around that butte. And using like greens, because it's very grassy and prairie over there, and really highlighting the view in the blues and purples. And AWRA conference this year had a field trip over in that area.
Yeah, so the water conference this year, every year we do a field trip, and this year it was to Belt. That is shown on the image. It's in so the red outline there is the town of Butte, and then kind of the far southwest corner is where we had our field trip. So when we're going to these conferences, we try to identify areas that people recognize who they're headed to. That's how you make the connection. So we chose to do Belt because the field trip was headed there.
And this is just a colorized digital surface model. And so all of you can see all the trees along Belt Creek there in the river bottom, and kind of see the belt.
Where's the belt? This?
Like around in the blue area of the view. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Again, because the conference was in Great Falls, I wanted to highlight that area, and they did another field trip to the Rainbow Dam. And so this has the 5 dams labeled, and it's got the digital surface model, but then it's also blended, overlaid with the canopy height model. So in the town of Great Falls, you can see like the dark green down there of the trees. And how very beautiful trees there are outside of town. And then this one is Crown Butte. So volcanic formation, there are like 4 buttes just west of Great Falls. This one's closest to Sims along Highway 200. It's a nature conservancy preserve. They purchased it in 1982. And because it's called Crown Butte, I wanted to go with something a little golden. And this is just also another digital surface model.
Can you see the question?
Brian, we're reading your question there. Oh, sure, I'll try. What is the LiDAR initiative from the state perspective? I see so many opportunities to improve what we know and how we use natural resources, both public and private. I get it. I get if we have adequate funds to continue this work on broad measures, but if not, could the state offer Montanans, it's a service reduced price. Service.
I think this is where you share, this is where the Montana LiDAR website, your dashboard that you have set up. I mean, that's talking about that's your elevation data sets and the ongoing work that's happening between the state, locals, federal agencies to update these elevation data sets. And so, you know, that's a great resource. I can't tell you how many times I've shared that link to people to talk about elevation data and where to kind of get elevation data A, but then B, what's going on with elevation data so that they can have that as a resource. So
Give a very high level and you take it from there. So the background here, the state libraries managed elevation and hydrography data. Basically, back when the USGS handed off, they extracted data from the old topo maps and they handed that off to the states to maintain, and the state library took on that role. And then in the early 2010s, there was something called the Enhanced Elevation Assessment that was done, identifying potential use cases and cost savings from a nationwide high resolution elevation data set collection. And that kicked off, it's called the 3-step program that Troy's been working with various partners to get the actual LiDAR data collected. At the state library, we're definitely interested in having the high resolution elevation data, but it's really kind of step 1 towards getting an updated hydrography data set. And that, okay.
Yeah, so all the data behind all the images we're looking at here are available to anyone. It's online through the Montana LiDAR inventory. You can download the elevation models. We've also put all these images, so this process, these posters and postcards that we've created, they're also all in an app that Garrett's built. You can go see the location of where that poster is. You can download it. You could get these images. But yeah, we serve in a coordination role. The state library's in a coordination role, working closely with USGS to find partners within Montana to bring a share of funding to the USGS, and then they provide the remaining match to gather, to collect this data, and then we're taking on that role too of being the repository for where to get the data.
This is our 3rd round of cartographic products to help describe LiDAR, and I'm so proud of all the work that's been done because it's so beautiful and it decorates our office. And we're like, oh, we gotta get rid of these posters. Like, no, we don't. I was like, this is like a standard poster. It's so pretty. Like, and so I would say that similarly to the other SDI data sets, we make sure that it's out there, that it's available in that coordination role that Troy was saying, and that we provide these foundational data sets for then what you kind of alluded to is other people coming in and studying it where necessary. And just letting people know how to use the information, how to access it, and providing those resources, which is just, well, I guess I'm preaching to the choir, foundational to everything that we do.
Yeah, we were just recently at the Joint Engineers Conference and I had a lot of people come up and say, hey, we use this for our preliminary planning and site planning and things like that. And actually, we have a survey for users across the state too, and I mean, it covers almost every industry in the state, both private and public, so.
I wanted to mention on that first one, the Gardner River, that was, yeah, you necessarily have to go back, but it was just love that that was flown prior to the flooding in 2022. But I think it demonstrates exactly, you know, one of the great values of this whole project, because basically, you know, we don't have it all up yet, but I think everything has been flown now. So now we have a baseline for the state. If that hadn't been collected in 2020 or prior to 2022 flooding, we would have even been looking back at USGS elevation data set was 10 meters. That's either coming from topo map contours that were interpolated to build a 10-meter dam, which doesn't really work in canyons like that, or the shuttle radar topography mission, which again, I'm guessing most of that canyon would have been a shadow in that data collection. So, you know, you'd have been using some pretty coarse data to do that comparison and to, you know, so I have no doubt that this saved an enormous amount of time and money when they were going in there to do repairs and evaluate, you know, the damages that have been done. And we're now, the state is now in a position that they have that one area everywhere.
But even to add to that story, we were able to get that image or that LiDAR data on an emergency basis and actually help, I guess, with the local government's assessments and whomever else had downloaded it from us, like immediately. And to be able to serve in that role, I thought was pretty awesome. All right, who's up next?
Yeah, so we're kind of gonna shift from LiDAR a little bit. So actually this is kind of in collaboration with other parts of the library. So these images of the historic town of Canton are actually from the history portal. Those are those two images on the bottom there. And the top image, you can see it's Canyon Ferry as it currently is, the reservoir. And then you can kind of see the newer dam kind of up in the top left corner there. But then underneath that is more historic imagery of what that valley looked like before the new dam was put in. And you can kind of see the island out in the middle there. So that's Cemetery Island, and then just north of that a little bit was the town of Canton. And then just to the left of that was the old dam.
It's Canton right there. And the old dam is just
Low from here.
south right there.
Yeah, so we like to do these kind of aerial imageries too. It's just kind of a fun way to look back into history, while also using the data we have at the library to kind of create these images. And I guess you can actually scuba down and see some of the old headstones that are now underneath water and remnants of the old town in Canyon Ferry.
What's the elevation?
I don't know what it is.
Cool. Questions? More questions?
It's kudos, man. Those are, I mean, yeah. Speaking as someone who has actually done a lot of that, some of those same, I followed a number of John's same tutorials, like the pancake one and the joy plots showing things. I mean, yeah. So I've done a lot of those things, just created them just for fun and done stuff. South Hills. So got looking down over the South Hills, Gibson Reservoir area up in the outside of Bob Marshall. So so yeah, I think this is cool. And I love these posters, so great and talk about, you know, something that's going to pull people in when you're at your conferences, when you go to these various meetings, which is the point of it, is to open that, like you mentioned at the start of this whole thing. These serve as a conversation starter to then pull the individuals into this is what we do. So,
it was probably 3 or 4 years ago at a county commissioner conference. And I had a gentleman kind of being a little more, negative, but not as engaging. And kind of questioning, why do you have all these things? And then, I said, well, come look at this poster, and it was the purple one. So the flathead going into the flathead. And I was like, well, this demonstrates like almost, well, at the time it was like, what, a $60 million data product for the state of Montana? And he's like, well, yeah, these are the things I need to know about. And then it just like, then it was a conversation. He brought more people back. He told me that was his bad fishing spot, so on and so forth. So like, it really is, maps always spark curiosity, and even if you understand them or not, people love them. And there was many, apparently, children that got bumped off, and grandchildren that got bumped off walls in order for them to hang our maps. Which I thought was awesome.
Pictures of children.
Yeah,
Children.
yeah, no, they didn't have children hanging out. That's correct.
One other thing I want to mention, kind of to Brian's question, was that while our immediate focus right now is shifting towards generating hydro from the elevation model, this was envisioned as a repeat program in the feds. I don't know if it's still, originally it was started at an 8-year cycle to recollect, again, nationwide. We think that this will probably, over time, take the form of what Nate did. Not necessarily that it will come that frequent or it'll go that much higher, but getting it done the first time is the hardest. And then as people see the value, they're just going to say, we just have to have this. So that's another reason we're very involved.
Montana has been prioritized for 6 to 8 years, but coastal states, this will be a quicker turnaround. All right. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to share an update with the council on council appointments. And first, I want to start by welcoming Nick Youngstrom. Nick is from the Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation. He was recently appointed as Director Castor's designee as the state representative to the council. Nick is joining us from Missoula, and he replaces Karen Coleman on the council. So Nick, welcome. Do you want to just introduce yourself, say a few words?
Good morning. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me, and apologies I wasn't able to join at 9 a.m. I had a can't miss meeting, unfortunately, on my calendar. But yeah, my name is Nick Youngstrom. I'm the agency GIS manager for OIT GIS here at the DNRC. And I'm based out of the Missoula office. Been with DNRC for about 6 years now.
Really glad to have you with us.
Likewise, thanks for having me.
And then we're thrilled that Maureen and Brian and Eric have all been reappointed to serve another 3-year term now on the council. Maureen, of course, representing local governments, Brian, our tribal government representative, and Eric as the representative from Megan. So we're thrilled that you decided to reapply and so glad that you got reappointed. The final council appointment that we're still waiting on is an appointment from the private sector. So we're continuing to work with the governor's office and waiting for word from them about an appointment for that position.
I am happy to announce that after over a year of negotiations, the Esri Master Purchase Agreement was signed on October 21st. It is a 4-year agreement that basically holds the master terms and then a price list for all of Esri's products. That price list is typically updated once a year. I think I'll get my first update in January. The contract is not to exceed 10 years. That basically includes the number of extensions, which is the state law. And then state and locals can utilize this agreement. So very excited about that. In order to get our ESRI enterprise agreement in place, we had to have this contract in place. So there was a lot of negotiating going on at the same time. And it is a 4-year agreement, which we have not had since I think the very first one in 2007 or 8. And this is for state agencies. So this is a state agreement that all agencies will be able to utilize. We've negotiated, like I said, additional terms, additional sets of products that are included with that, and then of course, years. So it was a pretty big accomplishment. That was signed on Halloween. Halloween was an awesome day. Things just kept happening. So it's great. Any questions there?
Huge kudos need to go out to Aaron in particular. I know Aaron, Matt was also heavily involved, but it was a very arduous process, to say the least. And I know the state CEO was very grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah, I've been loosely involved since the first one, and I don't know if this was harder than the first one, but.
I think it was.
Yeah, so, good job.
Yeah, I think so.
On a curious note, do you know what a local government looking to renew their ELA, would this have anything to do with that, or is it just single?
No, it would be a separate agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're.
I was just shooting for the, shooting for the stars there.
Hey,
so.
Eric, I've had those conversations. I will let you know, and Ezra usually backs us down pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
To have a local government agreement as well. Jenny, remember?
Oh, I remember.
And so, yeah, I've been working with them on pricing and how, and so has NISJIC, and how things are rolled out and just the impact overall of the government. And how it's really put a strain on us, and prices, whether they meant to or not, tripled in some cases if you haven't done the math. And we had a really great sit down, NISJIC did, with the head of local and state sales at NISJIC, and Pat Cummins, who's also just like a high level state rep, and then the head of global sales and marketing. Richard Cook, I believe is his name. And so, and then just a kind of a need to have better communication. So we've expressed, as states, we kind of got together and said, like, there's a real hardship here. And so we're continuing to work with them, and I think that they are open to obviously hearing what some of our challenges are and then moving forward. Because most states are highly engaged with local government, especially with software partnerships. So
we used to, when we were buying single seat licenses, we always referenced the states as the purchase agreement bought. So
yep.
And of course, that's from a negotiating tactic and evaluating value. You would certainly look at the MPA, and I would even say look at the change from the previous MPA when you're evaluating what kind of pricing you're getting for it.
Yeah, look at our local.
They were open to hearing what I had to say, where I didn't think that their pricing was reasonable for the state of Montana. EAs, because you're very well boxed in, right? And I said your small EA is not good enough. So they were open to hearing it. I offered a tour of Montana, taking them up and showing them certain areas. They were all aboard. And so we'll see, make it happen next year or two, but really just kind of like get them to understand what it looks like at a small government level here in the state. The tappers. Okay, and then we had, as a part of our enterprise agreement, we have what's called Esri Enterprise Advantage Program. There's like alphabet soup. It's called an EAP, Enterprise Advantage Program. And we've had an Enterprise Advantage Program as a part of our contracts for, I don't know how, for as long as it's probably existed. And so essentially as a part of this service that you purchase from Esri, you get a technical advisor and so many technical advisor hours, and then you get this bank of credits that you can use towards your program, whether it's training or maybe having a professional services person look at something, help you develop a workflow. And so in this case, we use some credits to help us purchase and have us led through a governance workshop. And so we had Deepti Kochar, and I don't know if you had seen any of her work done with Esri, but she leads the governance community team at Esri. And Matt was really blown away by some of her sessions. I met her a few years ago, and I know that the state of Georgia and the state of Indiana had worked with her on some governance activities. And so it was suggested that we try to bring her in and discuss some of our governance challenges or just new ways forward for state agencies. And so we were able to organize this workshop in addition to this annual planning session. And the annual planning session is just basically Esri coming in and interviewing all the state agencies that are participating in the agreement to understand what their needs were when it comes to some of these professional services activities. And then Eric thankfully was available, and I just thought at the last minute, I was like, oh, Eric's in town, I bet he would really like benefit from this, and he's on the council, so I think the week before I said, hey, Eric, would you be able to come to this event? And he did, and so he was able to represent the council and kind of understand that aspect, and then it just thought it'd be an overall nice benefit for local government to hear that side of things. And then Nick, I think he was appointed the day this workshop started or the day before. And so he's very new and needs to be orientated, but he's going to be able to bring that perspective as well. And so we had over 12 agencies, I think it was 12 agencies represented. And basically, we all have our individual governance plans and activities and models, but this is basically focusing on how we wanted to move together as a community and get stuff done. So she had sent out a rapid assessment, we had all taken it, and these were the things that we had focused on, which was structure, different types of operating models. We did very fast SWOT analysis, discussed leadership communication, cross-department initiatives, discuss shared infrastructure, and then what we envision as a future state of governance. And so from that kind of high level, it was decided that the council meetings, and then I think it was just a reorientation of what the council could do and what Nick's role could do for this community and with the council, and I guess kind of reorienting some of these managers to why the council is important to their activities, and that we would be moving forward, the GIS leads, we call it the community of interest, but GIS managers and leads for every agency get together every other month, discuss things. And so moving forward, we just have a standing council item. If there's anything that we want the council to address, like policies, so we brought that up, that policy workflow. And then one of the first things we had started working on 2 meetings ago was the need for an accessibility working group. We finally got that organized. There's going to be a meeting soon, and basically I think it's just kind of kicking things off and saying, what do we need to do for accessibility and where do we stand? And then so this DT is doing a deep dive, going all through our notes and then the presentation, and then we'll come back to us with recommendations. And so I just thought I wanted to bring it up because I thought it was a really awesome event. And then Eric and Nick, if you wanted to say anything and give you the opportunity. Anybody else? Your impressions?
I'll let Nick talk first.
Yeah, Aaron, I think that was a really good recap. I don't necessarily have anything to add beyond that right now. Like you mentioned, still kind of just getting my head around the dynamic and getting my feet wet in that pool.
You know, there's for me, there was two big things that came out of that. One, it got me thinking about it, you know, at that next, down at the local government level, the governments, because I know I've been kind of patiently waiting to see how the state handles their AGOL governance and, you know, along those lines, because I look at where we can go with it with our enterprise side of things, you know, where I'd adjusted. So I was taking in some of the lessons and some of the discussion for local level. But for me, from the council viewpoint, it was a case of seeing all the state agencies, you know, the state GIS managers in a room. I want to, as a council member, but more importantly, as a resident of the state, I want to see those agencies collaborating and cooperating. There shouldn't be a copy of cadastral at all 12 agencies. There shouldn't be a copy of roads and addressing all across the agencies. I mean, there's just the one, you know, type of thing. And so, and if there has to be a copy, then there's got to be a business need laid out, you know, type of thing. And so that's that collaboration and understanding that, okay, this is the data set, this is the priority data set, and all others should be referencing it, you know, and how that works and how that happens. And I think there was some discussion at that governance that everyone understood that. I think people all understood that. It's just a matter of getting it out there. So, because that, for me, that's where I came, you know, when I was sitting back, and I tried to lead it away from, don't focus on the council, you know, focus, this is for you guys to focus as state agencies and how you work together and collaborate and govern your data, the data that you all make within your departments. So that, for me, that's where I came up and did that and some others, so.
It was also established that we're gonna have to do a little more rooting, grassroots efforts, to get some of the needs heard. But I think folks are open to hearing.
Thank you for the invite, I'm glad I could get there.
Yeah, me too.
So when PT finishes conducting the review, is that something we'll be able to bring back to the council itself?
Yeah, she'll even give a presentation, so if needed, I could maybe even ask her to present to the council.
I think that'd be great.
And she'd be open to that, and Tina would be. But yeah, it was pretty cool, and then I just put through this slide in here about the pillars of governance and some of the things that we had talked about. And so we started this discussion about governance this past meeting, and we've been going through and starting to deliver presentations about governance to our constituencies. So I just thought it was important to continue that conversation and let you know what we're doing at the state level. I thought it was really great, like the agencies were really jiving, and it was like I think it'd been a long time since I felt that, you know, as a group, and we were just in this working group trying to get something done. So I thought it was very worthwhile. Any questions? Ahead of schedule.
Any questions for Erin?
Do you want to do the financial report? Can we kind of?
Well, let me ask, are there any questions about the first quarter financial report? We showed you the dashboard earlier in the meeting, so you got a sense of where we are. First quarter is always, you know, just the first quarter, and you'll start to see more spending coming for you know, about a month left in the second quarter. So you'll have the second quarter financial report at your January meeting. Do you want to ask if there are any questions? about the financial report.
I appreciate that dashboard. I like that. Same thing about the MGIA collections dashboard. I think that's very.
Right, do you want to bring up the MGA collections
Yeah.
dashboard?
Doing CPR next door. All right, so could you collapse? Oh, actually, never mind, it's okay, the chat's fine. So at the last meeting, we had presented some of the changes of the dashboard that we had done to prepare for the collections, and because it's kind of hard to see, I'm just gonna kind of dive in here. So we have at the bottom of the dashboard, so I expanded that with the little grabber. I don't know what this thing is officially called, collapse button. And this gives us a 7-year snapshot. So I think we changed it from 5 to 7 years just because there's been some major things going on since 2020 that I didn't want to lose sight of 2019. And so I was like, let's expand it to 7 years. And so the first chart is the annual collections in dollars. And then the second chart is the monthly collection in dollars. The third is the annual pages recorded. And so basically this is a snapshot of all time. And we do the calculation based on the cost of recording and then the number, basically the fees that we were given if we calculate. So it's a calculated pages recorded. And so you can really see that the highlighted past 7 years are, well, let's not look at 26, but kind of that COVID bump was quite significant. And so that's one of the reasons why, so the green is FY 2019, why I wanted to keep it, because it's like almost like we have to throw out those 3 years. And then the monthly pages recorded. So this is where, when I look at this, so you can interact with the dashboard, it's quite nice. On the right, you can turn off by clicking on the legend. So I'm going to turn off 21 and 22. So this is what I normally do just to kind of, my screen, not that. Just to kind of get a feel for what's going on. And so what you can see is that July, so this, Eric, we were kind of talking about this earlier. You're like, well, you know, have you seen an increase? And I just wanted to show that we have been seeing an increase in the pages recorded. And so in July, we definitely are seeing an increase. It doesn't hit 2019 numbers, but there's definitely an increase here. And then it's almost like on par with August, but honestly, I believe it'll probably likely go up because we are still at the beginning of November and some of these counties are just a little slow to report. So you need a full month to report, which is why you see such minimal reporting in October because it was run last week. And so September beats the 2019. So I thought that that's a really great sign. And so, you know, we're doing all these quick calculations in our minds. You're like, okay, so October is really where we would like to see the pages increase along with obviously the fees increase. So the fees increase starting October 1st. And then this last page is the collections info tab, and that gives you all the information on how to, well, it gives you the information on the current collections, the general schedule, when this is updated, and then this is the historic chart here in the middle is the historic amount of collections over time. But I just want to show you because it's kind of hard to find. You have to kind of do some research to see exactly what's changing. And so if I'm going to click on Yellowstone, and you can see that Yellowstone was reported. I'm going to pop this open here. So Yellowstone was reported at 27,000 for October. So that's the first month again of the new number. So we're estimating 12,000, a little over 12,000 pages calculated. So I'm going to go down to October of 2025. And it was, so again, 27,000. Go down to 25, 18,000, they're right around the same amount of pages. So we're seeing 40% increase, which is fantastic. You know, we're seeing what we expect to see. You know, Yellowstone's a big county, they have probably the staff to get this filed in, but I would expect honestly for those numbers to go and actually increase further for October for Yellowstone. And so it's funny. Evan had messaged me the other day, he's like, it's happening, and for some reason my Teams wasn't working, I'm like, what's happening? There was a picture, and I was like, oh no, what's happening? So, we were going in, and I had, Matt is on vacation, and I was like, hey, before you go, could you please run this, because I want the October, which was what Evan was alluding to be shown, and so that was pretty great, and so we are starting to see that, yeah, those increases. I don't think Flathead has reported. No, they're still at reporting in September. Let me see if Lewis and Clark has. I think, honestly, I think that, yeah, I think Yellowstone was the only one reporting.
Only big one.
Only big one, yeah. Well, yeah, because there has to be a little more. So, yeah, so you'll start to see those increase over time. So it's looking pretty good. So, any questions?
Everybody knock on wood.
Yeah, there is a. Go to the wall.
That's great.
Yeah.
This is such a helpful tool as well.
Yeah, and then might push it and be like, now I would like you to update it daily. No big deal. Any questions at all? Like I said, it's so if we go to month. So let's kind of see this fall off here, and oh, I've got flathead selected, so that's showing flatheads. But press that. Oops, that did something before. So reset. Okay. I don't have Matt here to show me how to do it. Is that okay? Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't remember the reset button. So you'll it's updated weekly. So if you're interested, up here in the right corner it says date update. So that's when you know that if you had looked at it since then, there's probably no changes. But take a look, and that's a good way to track. Let us know if there's anything that pops out or you need further explanation on. Help you with that. All right. What's next? That's me. So this is going to be relatively short because of all the other updates we've given and how everything is kind of, oh, ignore these last two, I can't update that slide. But the, I really didn't go in and update this, we haven't made that many updates in the past 5 weeks since the last meeting, but in case you hadn't seen it, this is where we're at. I think we're doing pretty well at a lot of them, of our strategic goals, the improved communication with geospatial stakeholders. I think that was like one of the biggest lifts, and we've made the most amount of progress. And I woke up this morning thinking about what we wanted to present at the January meeting, and I'm going to have an overview of, I'm going to have Matt provide an overview of the service we basically were able to track and pull reports, and he's built some pretty nice dashboards for us to kind of review how we are doing when it comes to customer support. And I think we've really dialed it in. I really appreciate the team. It's so Pat Jackson and Garrett Weichel and Matt and myself, we're on what we call the GeoInfo support team, and they kind of lead up with like the triage and tier 1 support. So everything kind of comes through this system, and then we divvy it out to all the subject matter experts after that. And so they're supporting a lot of requests coming in. just whether it's like, hey, how do I find a map for skiing, or how do I find this information about, you know, some old map that we published at some point in time, or, you know, how do I get a license file for the Esri agreement for state agencies, and so on and so forth. So we provide a lot of custom, and then of course there's always 800 cadastral questions in a month. And so we provide a lot of support for cadastral. And so I'm really happy with how we're moving forward, and we'll probably have more percentage, in January. So there's a lot of, I would say, excellent webinars coming out of NISTIC lately. And they have been seeing some record numbers in participation. Some of the accessibility webinars that I highly recommend that you go watch, there's like a GIS 101, so they have a 101 series, and then there's a follow-up. There was like over 800 people signed up, but I've never seen these numbers with this year. The next one coming up with the 101 series, so that's the third one down, is the elements of data preservation strategy, and I think at least a couple hundred are registered for that. And so you're all, the council is all making, or district members. I think that one is open to everyone though, so I highly recommend that you try to at least log in and get signed up for it, because you should be sent the video recording afterwards, even if you can't make it. And then I'm sorry, I'm going out of order here, but the next one I want to talk about is one of the initiatives that I'm a part of, which is Geo Women in Leadership. And so we are hosting a virtual roundtable. So those are some of our events we have that are outside of the in-person meetings. So we conducted an event at the annual conference regarding more professional development topics, and it was about negotiating. And so this one, we found a speaker from the state of Indiana who has impressed Megan Compton, former GIO, but now works for the FGDC. And she's one of the co-chairs, and she's going to discuss AI in action. And so we have that virtual roundtable next week. Everyone is invited to that. And so highly recommend that. The links are there, which I can send out later. And then this one just came up in the past probably 2 or 3 weeks, AI in ArcGIS. And so this is led by Esri, so empowering GIS leadership with AI assistance and transparent innovation. So the business partners of NISTIC are able to present so many opportunities through NISTIC, and it's very structured. So this is one of their chosen events, and I would assume it's going to be highly attended. And so I'd recommend that one as well. So that one, I think you probably have to be the member of NISTIC. And then of course, these are these dates for the mid-year meeting have been out there for a while. Jenny and Evan and I are likely attending that mid-year meeting and probably meeting with our constituencies. We don't have funding to send a district council member to that one, but you are open to attend if you have your own funding, of course. And then we are working on what it will look like to be able to get to the council, to get to the annual conference in Bozeman and really represent the state of Montana. And then lastly, because it's the biggest hurdle to kind of discuss, and I don't know if any of you have ever looked at the geospatial maturity assessment in the past. This has been a long ongoing survey of states. Stop and reshare. So basically, it does a deep dive into states on how they're doing with the spatial data infrastructure and gives a grade. COGO does something similar. They do an assessment of states, but there has been some major changes to the geospatial maturity assessment. We're not going to see the normal grades we've seen in the past. Insert sad face. They've used AI. They've really beefed up the assessment. I think it's a positive move forward, but they're really not comparable moving forward. And there's already some giant mixed feelings from states about what they've done. Michael Fashway serves on the Next Gen team. I serve on the Geo-enabled elections team. In the past, I served on the geodata control team. And so basically, we're the ones kind of evaluating the questions and saying, you know, how they're graded and the assessment afterwards. And so each state is able to write a rebuttal, so to speak, or an explanation for why things have been done the way they have. And they're really trying to use this to basically give a good state of the nation of how things are going, and then hopefully drive change and get funding. You can use it locally. There's gonna be a GIO Academy, which is just for the state reps, and myself will be attending it in December, about how to actually use the geospatial maturity in our everyday work. I think in years past, I've chosen not to write the rebuttal, just because I think the grades stand for themselves, and we've always had pretty decent or obvious grades, like, you know, an imagery program, didn't have an imagery program, so we didn't get a great grade. This year, I'll probably write something, because some of our grades aren't looking so hot as the years past. So I will plan on writing a response to that. And then Geo-enabled elections is not, I work on that with Allison Slats, she's a GIO from Minnesota, and we teamed up on that together. It is not graded, a lot of them are. I think the Next Gen one is graded. Michael, I'll have you come off mute here in a minute and explain that if you'd like, but I will be asking you guys to review it, take a look at it. You can take a look at the 2023 assessment. And, you know, of course, we compare ourselves to our neighbors and friends. So you can do a comparison of how we're doing, which I think you'll probably know that we're doing well in a lot of, especially in infrastructure, the obvious ones, like in the past, elevation and imagery, they were expensive data products, we probably haven't done as well. And we're always do well in coordination of those, but. And there is a dashboard and a web map for the last GMA. There's a lot of time and effort put into it, and so I'd be remiss if I did not say anything at this point. And I think our final reports are due in January, and then they've given us so much extra time because of this change in things. And so look soon. We're trying to use AI tools to the best of our ability. It's really difficult. The data just sometimes isn't, it's coming in from a survey 1, 2, 3 model, it isn't structured well to use AI. So, Michael, do you have anything to say? I know you logged on recently.
No, I think you captured it unless there's specific questions on the NG 911 part.
Will there be efforts nationally to use the GMA, like to support the GDA, or?
That is the overall use of it, and they want
federal funding.
Right, they want us to, they don't want it to go unused and shelved, so they're gonna do more education and efforts for those that are using it locally. And Evan and I kind of spun off and thought like, oh, wouldn't this be great if we did something similar for counties, and then we could use that as an assessment for awarding grants in the future, like, you know, measuring how they're doing in certain areas. And then showing that as a state, like, hey, this is where we're at, but it's so much work, like, it's so many man hours, you know. Yeah. It's being done by volunteers, so I'll say that.
The change to the AI, you said that things aren't as comparable looking back. Is that the goal to continue to be comparable moving forward?
Yeah.
Changing tools.
Yeah, we were all really concerned about that, is that if you keep flip-flopping, then they're never gonna be valuable in comparison, which makes it probably one of the most important tools is to compare over time. But they kind of standardize questions, try to re-ask the same thing and then expand in certain areas. So the geo-enabled elections GMA questionnaire went from like, I don't know, 8 to 12 questions to like 30 and 40. It's intense. There's a lot of information, and it's all qualitative in nature. And so Allison and I are trying to summarize and trying to go in and do a lot of updates, but it'll be a big lift for us to even summarize, because we don't have grading, so it's kind of more like telling the story of how the nation's doing in geomag elections. Michael, can you describe how the next gen piece has changed?
Yeah, it sounds like similar to geo-enabled elections. We went from some questions in 2023, some are numbering in the mid-teens maybe, to close to 30 or whatever it ended up being. So it did balloon a lot. We took, partially due to some time constraints, partially due to decisions we made, we being the small group of NISJIC folks that was working on the next gen GMA questions. We didn't change the grading as drastically as a lot of the other themes did. So ours is more comparable to years past. There were slight tweaks to it, but generally speaking, changes in grades do reflect some sort of actual change that's happened. Hopefully progress, which is what we're seeing overall. So I don't know how that'll be going forward, with maybe some more time to kind of evaluate and tinker with things going forward. But our general approach has been to try to not make drastic changes, so things are roughly comparable year to year. But it is, next gen is one of the newer graded ones. We just started grading it, I think in 2023 was the first year that was graded. Previous to that, it was all informational only. Yeah, I could answer questions if folks have something specific.
Trying to get to a graded one on the dashboard to show, so you can see some of the states that aren't responding. Yeah, so they probably didn't respond for this particular one, there are holes in general, but this one, they probably don't have a program or did not have time to respond, so we got an A-. And Ohio got an A. Yeah, this is addressing, and then I'll just click on cadastral. So this is supposed to drive policy and help inform the FGDC and some of the federal folks. We got an A. I think that's pretty well expected. For cadastral, we kind of lead the effort there. But the state, there's a lot of states coming along. There's 24 now with an A. But after this go around, you're not going to see that. And let's see, government units, which is boundaries. That one is graded. A lot of people get an A. I don't know if our grade will change that much. I looked at the ones that impacted me and I was like, what? Oh no. I have to write stuff. So we found ortho, that should be a link for us. Funky color. Or we get an F. We found, oh no, we get a B for that because we basically adopted the NAEP as our imagery. Slow.
Is it zoomed out because they very close?
I probably shouldn't say it. I'm recording.
If it was.
Right. Well, Alaska's just so huge. Yeah. I might have forgotten since I clicked zoom back in. Yeah, right. Yes, I think we got it. NA, we got an NA grade. Year before that, I think we got an F, and they're like, oh, people don't like us. I was like, no, give us an F. We don't have an energy program. We can build from that, but yeah. So anyway, it's a really cool map, and then with that there is you can go to the GMA page, and I can link to that as well, and you will see all the individual responses, the greater report, and then you can look at Montana's page. Grade summary page, ours. So our overall grade. B plus. It's definitely dropping. And then the individual report cards. I think in years past, I've seen like states get really hot over some of these grades. I was my first district conference, there was like a big reveal, we got like a low cadastral grade. Stu was so upset. We're all B plus, we got an A minus in addressing, an A in cadastral, C in elevation, an A in ortho leaf on, C in transportation, B in next gen, B plus in geodetic control, A in government units, and a B in leaf on imagery. Oh, and then an A in coordination. Which I think we're gonna get dinged this year because of the way we're structured, which will be interesting.
But say more about that.
Just the trend of not having a authority like a GIO's office. So it'll be interesting and being under like a CIO, so, which I'll have a lot to say.
Oh, I have.
Yeah. And so I was like, I looked and I was like, dropped in coordination grade? I was like, no. I was like, did I answer something incorrectly?
Yeah, it seems like they're trying states
How they should be structured.
And then when its district is trying to tell
Well,
states.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, not the FGC and yeah, it's just like, you know, and it might have been my interpretation and their interpretation. Does not align. I was like, we're doing just fine. So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to help you.
Okay. But I think I'd love to see, an accurate grade for the state like these so that we can show that if there's any opportunity for us to get funding. And it should be ready, hopefully for the February when we go to our constituencies in DC. Bring that with us. And see, we need more funding for elevation or LA Hydro. All right, any questions or anything else? And I think that is, oh no.
Takes us to council member updates.
I still have just a recap of what.
Are you talking to me?
Big screen here.
Could you polish up the forehead? That happens to me too all the time.
That was Eric, but that's not me.
All right, with
All
that, I'm
right.
turning off my camera.
All right, so these were the events that had taken place and that we had completed since September 26th. So Michael attended the Models Fall Seminar with Evan Hammer, and was there anyone else? Just you two attended that. We conducted a workshop here in Helena on 4 planners, which was really well received. It was like a 4-hour workshop here, or half day. And essentially using addressing, so trying to push the geocoding service and how to use addressing and other resources of MSL. So that was Matt and Garrett. Jeff, I think it helped. Michael and Matt and Garrett wrote it, the class. And so that was really well received. I did not step one foot into that facility because I'd gotten so sick, unfortunately, so I missed that. But the planners, they really, that association it really aligns with all the information that we provide, and they've always been very welcoming, and we'll probably continue to partner with them. And then, Troy, you've given a good synopsis of the AWRA. Did you want to talk any more about that, or?
No, it's about, I think we had 175 attendees this year. I am on the board as the secretary during that and the treasurer now. So we've got those connections now. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. It's good to have the inside track.
Yeah.
And then we presented at the League of Cities and Towns in Billings, and honestly, the League of Cities and Towns has really changed their way of conducting meetings, and I'm really loving it. They've been doing some really amazing meetings in the past few years, and I guess that just overall in general have changed things, and they have been gracious enough the past few years to let us present. Usually you have to be a certain type of partner. Everything's kind of being putting a cost price tag on things. But they've always let us present and said, hey, if you have any openings, we'd love to present. You have to be some level of membership. And so, but they, for the past 2 years have let us present, and Matt and I presented on geospatial resources. We had a lot of people stop by our booth, a lot of activity. Tracy Cook was also there at the conference as an attendee and of course booth member. And so that was really great. From that conference, we were asked to present at this floodplain seminar that's going on this week. What is that? Floodplain Managers Seminar. It's digital.
Yeah, it's a 101 training for anyone.
So we had been asked by the DNRC to present. I'll be presenting at that on Friday. And then the Joint Engineers Conference. So we had been asked like 2 years ago, and it just didn't fall in line. And this past year they asked us again. Another really well-run conference, and I think we weren't sure what to expect, but we were all really pleasantly surprised. I thought it was a great new conference to be a part of. There were even GIS people there. I did not expect that. We had a booth, we presented. I think we've already been invited to come back next year. Everyone loved our products that we had out there. Anything?
A lot of unfamiliar faces. So
Yeah.
I think that was
Right.
good to get some people that we don't normally see.
Yeah. At one point, Trey messaged me, he's like, I don't recognize anybody. I was like, it's a new group. And then we saw some regulars, like, oh yeah, we know the city engineer. And so it was well done, but then it also kind of, I think Evan and I were chatting about it. It's like, well, what other engineering groups could we potentially reach out to and present to? And it was, I think it was a continuing education credit that they got, a CLE or C. And they are the biggest users, engineers and surveyors, of LiDAR data. So we try to focus in on that. But I also talked about how they could get involved. I basically, I didn't know who I was going to be speaking to, so I threw it out there that, we need working group members. We're looking for funding for certain things, kind of push the funding partnership. Because some of these folks represent pretty large engineering firm that could potentially be a partner with us in the future. So we threw it out there, we'll see what we get. And then 2 new other events that we have not tried, and it's kind of part of our a strategic planning process of finding new partnerships and finding new folks to interact with, and that would be the wool growers. That's in December in Billings, and then the stock growers. And so the wool growers, Garrett has a connection to, and has been going to that conference for years. And so we said, well, why not? Let's see what we can learn from these folks, and then of course give them the updates for our program and teach them about our programs and how we could potentially partner. And then stock growers, I was really impressed with the schedule. There's a lot of high-level policy folks and policy discussions that are going to be had there. And that will be the second week of December. And then our Natural Heritage Partners meeting was unfortunately had to be postponed because a lot of our partners are federal employees. And I think it was a great move though. And it's an online event. online only on December 11th, and I think you said already invited the council.
I think so.
Yeah.
And so,
We'll make sure you get the updated version of everything, and it would be great for you to attend and listen to some of the amazing things coming out of that program. And with that, I believe that's it.
A couple, one more grower, the grain growers are, we haven't talked about this, but through MTSRN, we've been pushed a lot of people who dogs, we need to go to grain growers. That's, I believe, is December 2nd, 3rd in Great Falls, so we can coordinate, I suspect there's some opportunities for you guys there.
Yeah. That's the one Matt, like I'm getting these guys who were growing up on farms. We're saying, we should go to this, and he's like, I was like, no, let's go to stock growers first, and he's like, well, grain growers are really my people here, and I'm like, okay.
Well, we'll definitely be there for our TNs and.
Oh, that's
if
good.
There's opportunity that there's stuff.
Okay, that'd be
And
great.
then I want to mention on Marl's, Michael and I were the only staff that were at Marl's.
Oh, Joe was there.
But Joe, of
Yeah.
course, was there as
Yeah.
a council member, I should mention that.
Yeah, do you wanna talk about any of the discussions or? No, okay. That's another event, all right.
we're up to council updates. I wanna share a suggestion. We are expecting lunch here in the library, sort of any time. Why don't we break until approximately noon? If the council is comfortable, we could have kind of a working lunch discussion and then wrap up a little bit early. So for those of you online, look for us to come back at approximately noon or shortly thereafter, depending on when lunch arrives. All right, for those of you online, we're gonna come back together and continue with council discussion, updates from council members. I have an order on the agenda, but I don't know that we necessarily need to stick to that order. But Eric, I'll invite you if you want to go first.
Bring some up. You bring that email up. I sent. Thought I saw Mike on the call.
He is on.
Okay, Mike.
If he wants to add anything, but. Couple things that I shared with Aaron, when I didn't think I was gonna be here for the report. That Megip's been working on, the Big Sky GeoCon conference is, the website's updated to show that registration will be opening in February. It's up in Whitefish, and they also are highlighting the guest speaker this year is John Nelson, which we've all had some discussion about earlier this morning regarding the cartography and some fun map making things. And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing Megan's been working on has had a big discussion is GIS Day. And they have a nice hub page built showing who's participating and a number of the events going on.
Do you need a water?
I got one.
Okay, I wasn't sure what was.
I got my vodka right here. So.
I also like, everyone keeps talking about John Nelson, I don't want people to feel like they don't, like, those who don't know who John Nelson is, gets left out of the conversation, but he is, he's kind of a celebrity with Esri. He's a map maker and, software designer, he's a writer, he creates all sorts of different, online content. And, he does instructional videos, anyway, he works at a small woodshed in Michigan. I don't know if I believe that, but.
No, it's true. If you watch his
Really?
YouTube videos, it's literally a small shed.
It's a small
in the
shed.
backyard. So.
But
It's
he.
almost like an ADU in the backyard.
Yeah. Did anybody go to the UC this year? Did you do the map wizardry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the last one and still have it. They did a map on demand going down the Gulf of America.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah, did you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was awesome. So they did,
The
these
golf.
other two guys, golf with golfing. references to other things. But he had two other gentlemen with him, and it was very entertaining. And then hockey mark photography. And so these guys just kind of hit it out of the park, and they had hundreds of people in their presentations, and they redid it multiple times.
Yeah.
And they had like printed materials ready for you to take, so we all got postcards, and that was like the last session, one of the last sessions on Friday, so there was a ton of people that stayed for it, so I think it's pretty exciting, it's coming.
No, because I've watched the virtual ones, from the UC, and that's, you have Sarah Bell, who does a lot of the maps, making with Esri stuff. I think the gentleman that was with him, it's a Ken. Oh, I can't remember the name of the
guy from Australia?
Oh, yeah, yeah, but they collaborate a lot together, so, but yeah, so from the makeup side of things, those are two of the big things is the GeoCon, sign up for that will be opening in February, and then also I want to highlight here, next week, the makeup GIS Day Mapathon. They're going to be doing humanitarian OpenStreetMap work again, similar to what we've done, similar type events like that in the past. And you can see some of the hosted events. I think this is fairly up to date. I know we've received a couple other requests recently, requests to do things. But so you can see where a number of things I know, let's see, you've got Missoula, Allen, you want to scroll up, I think, yeah, Billings, Bozeman has a couple events, I think Billings has one or two, and Great Falls events, so plenty of opportunities to go out on GIS Day that evening and maybe network with folks and see what's going on, but as you see in the bottom row, you could also map from home, and we can do some OpenStreetMap humanitarian mapping work with that GIS Day. So those are two of the big items that I wanted to share from a couple mega meetings. So I don't know, Mike, if you're on, if you have any things you want to add.
Hi, Mike, glad you could join us.
Nope, no video or voice.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Good, thanks, Mike. Exciting opportunities. Any questions for Eric? Just for the updates.
I did great this time.
I'm so nervous. No, at at least, I mean, that's probably one of the weak sides, is I haven't talked as much as other universities. I probably should be a little more engaged with MSU and Montana Tech. I've talked to a few people at MSU. Things seem to be going well over there, GIS wise. At there were some changes with faculty, with the geography department going, we talked about that last time, I think. We had a meeting the other day with anybody at who is remotely interested or involved in teaching GIS classes. There were like 20 different classes being taught that have some kind of spatial component where more than just a side thing, where like GIS is kind of the main thing. One of the main things I learned is that a lot of professors and especially graduate students don't care at all for ArcGIS. They do everything outside of ArcGIS. It's all in R or Python libraries. Or, some people roll around QGIS. Google Earth Engine's big. So it's definitely a little bit different probably than most of the either agencies or private industry where students end up working in. If you're in the academic world, ArcGIS Pro or ESRI products are not necessarily the go-to platform. But for undergrads, I think it's still big. The instructors who teach undergraduate classes want to get the students trained up in ArcGIS Pro. So there's a little bit of discussion in education versus training. Are we going to teach them spatial concepts, or are we going to get them time in the program where they can get better at ArcGIS versus just spatial concepts? Getting data is hard for students, I learned. That's what most of the instructors and professors find. So the State Library definitely is pointed out it's a good place to get data. Ton of interest in LiDAR, so that's timely for this morning's presentation. It's probably the most interested family of data set out there, especially the raw data. I don't think most people care much about DEMs. They're like, yeah, we can make our own DEM if we want to. They really, well, they mostly care, at least in what I've heard in my field, they care mostly about the vegetation. So they want to see vegetation. So repeat collects are super important to them, and getting the stuff that's on top of the ground, that's in the way of most geology or geography ideas. And so the vegetation is what people are going for, and seeing changes in vegetation over time, and both in the teaching and in the research side of things. So NAEP is still big, people waiting for the new NAEP to come out. See, undergraduate students, they use the more vector-based stuff a lot because it's so easy to get to it. I was pointing that out myself. Yeah, it's broad, it's all over campus. I mean, people teaching it in the computer sciences department, geography, forestry, health sciences, do some cool stuff with it. So yeah, the GS is doing well, I think, on campus overall, and the State Library, people are aware of it, go there for data. They want more LiDAR data for sure. So hard thing is getting money for it. It's hard for people to contribute because it's all, most people have grant funding, so to get a grant that actually will fund, you know, a large chunk of money for data is not always easy, they find.
What about elevation derived hydro? So the hydro, are people looking for that for water modeling? And it's a little affordable, maybe not. LiDAR.
I think there'll be a lot of interest in it, yes, for sure.
What do you think? Oh, go, sorry.
As I said, the climate office, they're, you know,
Right.
big into the whole hydro side of things.
What do you think is a good way to connect with folks, like just to describe how the purchasing works, and so that they're, you know, if they have a certain amount of grant funds, they can look forward and understand our program and how we have to work with the feds with their programs, like. You think it's like a seminar we come over and talk about, or is there a group like research folks that talk about GIS purchasing, or?
Well, we don't do anything purchasing, I guess, for the software per se. It's all like central IT now. It used to be kind of my suite, the College of Forestry kind of, you know, they did their own thing, but that's all been centralized for the whole campus and for all of MUS, I think. Data-wise, yeah, I think that would be helpful, or some kind of, even just a newsletter or something, like so get it out there a little bit more as we can. We'll probably have some more meetings, I assume, like the first one, that was the first meeting, I think, with a whole bunch of GIS people in one Zoom.
Yeah.
But, I think there'll be more of those coming, just to align a little bit better, or align the class a little better. Overlap we found out between classes where things could be aligned a little better, so that'd be a good maybe place to get some information out on how to easier get new LiDAR data for a lower price maybe.
Do you follow the state fiscal year and your budgeting processes? So you must start like around February, start lining up for the next session-ish?
I mean, we do, but a lot of funding is federal, so that might line up with the federal year. There's always this kind of discrepancy there.
Yeah, that was one of our major questions we asked grantees and trying to understand local government's models. And anyway, I thought that was a pretty helpful discussion when we had that.
I think since we have a lot of new faculty involved in the GIS, I think it'd be good maybe to get together with them and maybe somebody can give a presentation.
Yeah, maybe we can like show and tell when it's gonna work. Right.
Like I said,
Okay.
Other questions for Valentine? Yeah, I don't know if you heard that Maureen doesn't have a voice, so.
No, I did not. I don't have much of anything today. I continue to struggle to get to the user, the SIG, and that it just really kills me, but it's on my calendar every time, and every time there's something else, and it just, it's off, so I've got to figure out a way to prioritize that. So I don't have much report, I'm sorry. We understand.
And Maureen, I won't put you on the spot, but feel free to put anything into the chat here.
No, that's okay. I do have a couple of things. And so I work with 3 counties doing the 911 addressing. And one of our counties has hired a part-time GIS person now. And so we've been working together. And she's part-time DES also, but so yeah, so Garfield County is now coming online with GIS, which is great.
That's cool.
And then I've also shown the commissioners how not only can I build maps, but I can help them with the survey 123 and how that can help them work with getting response back from the local community on different things. And so I've done a couple different surveys with them. So, and we're able to produce some really nice looking reports that they can share. And so that's been in the news even. And so that would be, I think, a really good thing to show other counties that, you know, this program, this GIS program has other outlets just besides mapping. And so it just maybe a segue to different presentations that you're doing that you can show them that part of it as well. That's about all I have. Sorry for my voice.
Well, we hope it improves. Thank you, Maureen. Any questions for Maureen?
No, but I do have a note, maybe you could show us what you've done, Maureen, at the January meeting,
Yeah.
do a little show and tell.
You want me to share my screen?
In January, do a little show and tell.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then while you're looking at that stuff, if you're not familiar with the ArcGIS solutions, there's all these pre-canned things about public data response, especially for local government. I highly recommend taking a look at that. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, do you have any tribal updates? Maybe he walked away, we can come back to Brian. What about Joe? Are you with us, Joe?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything new to report for Marls. We do have a board of directors Zoom meeting in December. And so I think after that, I'll be able to bring a better update for the January meeting.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
I don't know if we still have Nick with us. Again, Nick is fairly new to his role. Okay. Don't have Alan today.
You're open.
Maybe he's back to work.
I got some emails from other feds. Some of the coordination that Brian and the BIA and I were doing obviously had a halt.
Yeah.
Because of the shutdown. We'll be hopefully picking those back up pretty quickly.
Was anybody directly impacted by the shutdown? Were you guys at the university?
Our partners, I mean, it's harder to find people, although we work a lot with the Forest Service, of course. I think I heard somebody say that 75% of the Forest Service was still at work. No,
Yeah.
They were out there. Yeah. So, but we had to cancel some meetings and stuff about some joint projects we had. Nothing too serious that can wait a few weeks.
That's good. I think things will sort of come back to normal. New normal. I'll just check in with Brian to see if he's back one more time. Any other council discussion?
I think just maybe a quick overview of what we want to do at the January council meeting. Other than some of the obvious things we already have listed, but I was gonna provide a review of 25. Obviously, we'll give a status update on the grant program. And then Eric, I cannot remember if we appointed him indefinitely as the MGIAC rep to make it. But now that he's been reappointed for 3 years, I don't know if we want to refresh that. Sure. To discuss that for January.
Put that on, see if
Okay.
anyone else,
Yeah.
see if anyone else wants to step forward and try and take ownership on the mega board.
Maybe we should. Yeah, I know, I had the make it board reach out, I said, you know, and I gave him the whole spiel of how you're appointed, so you're not.
Tell them.
The guidance from the governor's office, so, yeah, they understood that, even if do we even vote? No.
I think we did last time, I think we took nominations, because we
Yeah,
had, because I remember there was a discussion about it at that
Right.
time, so yeah, that's something you guys want to revisit then.
Okay, yeah, great.
Then, maybe, just because I think I read in the law portion, the makeup, the section there, it says is, you know, I'm a representative as a member of the Montana GIS community.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I'm about a board member.
Right.
It's just that I'm a member of MGIAC
Right.
type of thing. And so if someone else on council was looking at an opportunity to give back and be part of the MGIAC board, then by all means, there should be a discussion. You know, I'm happy serving on the MGIAC board. I have no problem doing that. I appreciate the time that I have there, but you know, on the same token, if there's others that want to be more involved with the GIS community as a whole, then by all means, we should have that discussion in January and let people, you know, put their voice in as well, so.
Sounds good, Eric.
And then a demonstration maybe from Maureen about some of that cool work she's been doing to help our commissioners. And then Troy, by that point, I believe we'll have some more updates about plans on theme plans, so we'll have. We might have one drafted. Maybe? Yeah. We're close.
Maybe, I mean, we're moving on. Could ask, we believe by some updates, yeah.
Okay. See, let's. Something else.
Is it going to be primarily online?
January was gonna be an online meeting, is that what you said?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, yes, yeah.
Especially because of winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you online that didn't hear, we're planning the January meeting online. That'll be January 29th.
And then, we were talking about doing another council panel, and so I'll probably be writing that up, so. At the meeting, so if you're interested in presenting, let me know, I can. We can have a sidebar of what exactly we wanna do as a part of the meeting presentation. But there's no official meeting.
I don't think there's been a
Event.
call. I don't think there's been a call for papers yet.
Not yet, no, I've been watching.
Great. Any other business or announcements? Any public comment? Any public comment? Yeah, thank you for your comment there, Brian. Any public comment? Hearing none. Again, our next meeting will be January 29th. That will be online. Look for meeting materials a week or so prior to that meeting. The next month or so, Victoria will send out calendar appointments for your 2026 meeting dates, and that information will also be on the council website. With that, we're adjourned, and I hope you all have a very happy holidays.
Thank you, you as well.